Alright, good evening folks, it's Enforcer Matt and welcome back to another short war video, and today we're receiving breaking news coming out of Syria that Russian troops are being shipped down to the western province of that country to be trained on how to use the Iranian Shahed drones to use in the war against Ukraine. So obviously that is not good news whatsoever, and it indicates a deeper involvement than we had previously thought between Russia and Iran to fight the war in Ukraine. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into our first article of the day, which is from @It'sTheEnforcer, which is us on Twitter. And the post says, Ukrainian intel shows that the Russian troops are being trained on the use of Iranian drones, which includes the Shahed drones, as well as a plethora of other ones as well, at the Sharat airfield in Syria's western province of Homs. It also says the training is being conducted by the Lebanese Hezbollah police, which is an Iranian proxy force, as well as the Iranian Revolutionary Guard themselves. And I just want to note this was first reported by the Kyiv Post, and it was based on an intelligence report from Ukrainian intelligence. But as you can see here, this is an image of the Al-Sharat airfield in western Syria, and this is allegedly where the training is being conducted. So this is where Russian troops are being housed actively as we speak to learn how to fly these deadly drones to attack Ukrainian civilians and also the armed forces as well. Also, one other thing we're learning also is that the Ukrainian intel reports also mention that Syrian mercenaries, who the Kremlin plans to use as UAV operators as well, are being trained alongside the Russian servicemen. So this also indicates that Russia is planning on using these mercenaries more heavily than previously mentioned in the war against Ukraine, which is obviously something that they seem to be doing in a more trending fashion. Because they're going to Sierra Leone, they're looking for mercenaries, and they're also looking for more mercenaries basically wherever they can find them at this point, including Nepal. This indicates the Russians might be having a very, very serious morale problem, and they can't even get their own citizens motivated to fight in the war because they've simply become so demoralized. But by far, this is the biggest news story of the day, and quite a bombshell actually, to learn that they're actually shipping Russian troops down here to Syria to be trained to fight in Ukraine, and that Iran is participating in it quite heavily. Moving into our next post here, we actually have the map to show you exactly where this training is taking place in reference to where Syria is on the map. And obviously up here is Moscow in Russia, and down here is the Sharat Air Base. So if we zoom in here, we'll see it is in the western district of Syria. It's close to the border with Lebanon actually. And you'll see right here, there is the village or city of Homs, and here is the Sharat Air Base. So I'm assuming the Russians are being flown into Homs, and then they're being transported by truck or some other method of transportation right to this airbase which they're being housed in. And with that, we're moving on to our next post here, which is from Nexta on Twitter. And in this post, we learn a little bit more about that drone that exploded on Moldovan territory yesterday. And in this post from Nexta, it says on February the 11th, near the border with Ukraine, an unexploded drone, Shahed, which is Iranian, with 50 kilograms of explosives was found in Moldova, and the police published footage of the explosion of a shell found among the wreckage of the drone. So here's actually a photo of that wreckage that we saw the other day, and here seems to be some electronics and other parts of the Shahed drone. There's the full motor intact still here on the left. So we're being told that the warhead was actually still intact, either next to the drone or somewhere near it, and the collision simply caused the drone to break apart, but the actual drone itself was not actually exploded until the Moldovan police were able to get down there and then conduct a controlled explosion themselves, and we can see that right here.
Attenzione interventi, 3, 2, 1.
So right there you see the explosion of the 50-kilogram warhead that was on that Shahed drone. And it's good that this did land out in the field because that would have caused some damage if it actually hit a city or a populated area. So even though, it's not good that the drones are landing on Moldovan territory, it's good that no one was injured. But at the same time, I do feel like this needs to be addressed by also the Western authorities as well as Moldova themselves, because we can't simply let these drones keep flying into our territory and not do a thing about it. But nonetheless, we're moving on to our next post here, which goes to Null Reports. And I'm going to make this one somewhat quick because we did cover it last night on our war stream. And this says that Ukraine's digital minister Mykola Fedorov revealed that Ukraine plans to produce thousands of long-range drones capable of deep strikes into Russia in 2024, and that can even reach Moscow and St. Petersburg. And once again, it's good to see that Ukraine is expanding their drone operations because they have developed an entire unit dedicated to this now. So they are definitely taking the drones seriously, and they realize it is a major part of the reason why they're being successful in the war, and they keep expanding it every single day. And moving on to our next post here, we have one from Insider Paper. Europe calls for a quote-unquote second life insurance policy in addition to NATO, and that was a statement made by France. which is quite interesting because right now NATO is the strongest alliance in Europe and also in the West. And now it seems like Europe is wanting a second alliance such as NATO to supplement it. They don't want to replace NATO, by the way. They just want to supplement it with a second one just in case something happened to NATO. But in my opinion, nothing's going to happen to NATO. It's a solid organization. It is the only way that we can maintain security in Europe. And it's the only way the United States can help ensure that powers like Russia and China don't start expanding and taking over perfectly sovereign democratic countries. So I think as long as everyone pays their fair share into NATO, which some countries in the European Union need to start doing because they're not paying their 2%, I think NATO will be a perfectly stable organization and it will continue to protect Europe and all Western interests. So with that, we're moving on to our next post, which goes to Nexta, and it says, replacing the commander-in-chief with Syrsky will tie Zelensky more tightly to decisions on the battlefield and will make him responsible for any failures. And that was written by the Wall Street Journal. And obviously that carries with it a big portion of opinion, which is going to vary depending on who you ask. And in my opinion, I don't think it's going to change very much because Syrsky is simply a new general which Zelensky believes will carry out his objectives a little bit more clearly. But I don't think Zelensky is going to be tied to any failures necessarily like the Wall Street Journal is trying to make it seem if there is a hiccup or a holdup on the battlefield. And we also see here that's noted that at the same time some soldiers were disappointed with the president's decision, and in their opinion, the change of leadership at this stage will have little impact on the situation at the front. And it's a little too early to tell if that actually is the case or not, because we really don't know what Syrsky's frontline strategy is going to be at the moment. We simply know that he is developing one right now. We're really not sure what that's going to entail. And with that, we're moving on to our next post here, which is from Flash News Ukraine once again. And this is a story about Poland and some economic woes that seem to be impacting Ukraine and Poland's relationship. And we see here that Poland plans to check all grain from Ukraine that is transiting to other countries, and that's because they explain that it'll be done because after the grain is transited to Germany from Ukraine, it turns out it's of poor quality and 99% of it returns to Poland as European grain, which is sold back to them. So while many people understand that Ukraine is having to export as much grain as they can to try to fund their war effort, it looks like Poland is starting to get a little upset that the grain seems to be of low quality. However, I wouldn't be too tough on Ukraine though, because they are having to grow the grain and also process it during the war, which makes it much more difficult. But at the same time, I do understand why Poland is upset, because they don't want a subpar quality of product that ends up flooding their market and also devaluing their own domestic grain production. And once again, it's an issue with the grain between Poland and Ukraine, and this situation has to be taken care of very fragilely because Poland is a huge supporter of Ukraine, and Ukraine can't afford to piss them off. This is causing some tensions here, and this is a post from the Kyiv Independent, and Tusk, who is a person who is inside of Poland, who's a politician, warns that economic disputes may spark anti-Ukrainian sentiments. And he basically says that because of these economic issues that are popping up, a sudden emergence of anti-Ukrainian sentiments may be caused by that. So hopefully they can get it all sorted out. But with that being said, that is our last piece of news for the day. So I hope you found this video informative. If you have, please press the like button and subscribe as well. And if you're already subscribed, thank you very much. I saw a lot of people yesterday saying that they've been subscribed for a long time, which makes me very happy to hear that. And also, by the way, if you find these videos informative, you can support us on our Patreon page. The link is in the description below, and you can support us there and help us to keep this whole thing running. And with that, that's all for now. So, of course, bye-bye for now.